Armand here with the forecast for the week of September 5th, 2022. Well, last week I said try to get it done early in September. This is still your best bet to get things done. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but this is probably still your best bet to get things done sometime early in the week. That's the take-home message. You can stop watching right here. Don't stop watching right here. But if you stop watching right here, you've got the take-home message. Get stuff done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Why do I say that? Well, Mercury stations to retrograde on Friday, and Mercury stations tend to mean that we're going to have all the usual snafus and problems and things like that right around the station. So we'd be looking at Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So those aren't great days to do things. So we're going to look to get things done a little bit earlier. Now, the conditions earlier in the week are not necessarily, they're not necessarily conducive to getting stuff done anyway. Among other things, Mars has entered the shadow of his retrograde. Mars doesn't retrograde until October 30th, but I wouldn't relax and say we have time because Mars is already in the shadow of his retrograde. Venus has left Leo and moved into Virgo, where she's not particularly happy. And Pallas Athene has left Gemini and moved into Cancer. She's fine in Cancer, but puts a very protective vibe, particularly around some types of communication. So we're looking at a series of conditions that are not perfect. The moon is in Capricorn as the week begins, and that will help. And then it goes into Aquarius, and that's a positive thing, generally speaking. Certainly should help with getting some stuff done and the community level and things like that. You can get some stuff done early in the week. Okay, so that's kind of the thing. We're coming up to the full moon on Saturday. The full moon is in Pisces, and that suggests to me that it would be a good time to just knock off and have some fun and let the Piscean spirit flow over you with meditation or, spend the weekend watching sports and having a couple of beers or something like that. Whatever. Let serendipity guide you at the Pisces full moon. It's right about 17 degrees of Pisces, 17, 18 degrees Pisces, if you happen to know where you're at when it comes to that. Anything that you have at about 17 degrees of mutable signs, particularly Virgo and Pisces, very activated, but also Gemini and Sagittarius. So let's unpack things a little bit more. Other interesting things that are happening this week is on Wednesday, we have the sun opposed to partnership asteroid Juno. Now with, with Venus, the sort of planet having to do with love and relationship and also values, with Venus slipping into Virgo, then we can sort of focus a little bit more on Juno. Juno's in Pisces. Juno's getting quite a bit of a workout, a lot next week. Juno is partnership. It's more the partnership that you have. It's more about, actual partner than it is about partnership ideals and things that you, not what you, Venus is about what you want. Juno's about what you got. So the sun opposing Juno, that'll just highlight your partnerships. That's sort of a midweek type of thing. Moon goes from Capricorn into Aquarius. You got this, it sounds like, if get your work done early in the week and then go have a good time for the rest of the week. Now, Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde, as I said, most likely to feel it right around the station, the 8th, 9th, and 10th, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but you can find mercurial problems anytime this week and anytime for the next 21 days after he stations to retrograde, and then things can resolve in the future. So this retrograde in the sign of Libra, and then back down into, he's going to retrograde back down into Virgo. this retrograde in the sign of Libra. Usual things, you know, watch with your computers and your cell phones. Not a good time to buy new technology. Not a good time to buy new books. If you're going to read books, I read a lot of books. Not a good time to buy new ones. Go back and reread them. All of the usual types of things, you know, communication goes awry, back up your computer, make sure that you say things clearly. It'd probably be much better off having a phone conversation than sending an email or a text, which can be easily misinterpreted, all the usual stuff. But on top of that, contracts and negotiations, which are always affected by Mercury retrograde, are especially affected by this retrograde because it is in the sign of Libra, which has to do with contracts, negotiations, diplomacy, and things like that. So anything from, you know, international treaties to your lease for the car or your apartment is suspect at this point in time. I'd be very careful about signing anything. I'd be very careful about the negotiations that take place, especially, you'll recall, as Mercury is retrograding in opposition to Jupiter in Aries, in warlike Aries. So there's Mercury trying to be a little bit diplomatic. Jupiter is very good with diplomacy and stuff like that, but in Aries, maybe not so much. You'll recall that last week that aspect was exact, and it will be exact again on September 18th as Mercury retrogrades, and then we're going to go forward into October 12th, I think, when it's going to make the final aspect. Now, here's some astrology. When a planet is in a sign, in any given sign, that sign is ruled by or, you know, overseen by another planet, generally speaking, unless you're in your own home sign. So Jupiter is retrograding in Aries, and Aries is Mars' home sign. So we say it's Jupiter disposits. There's an astrological word for you, disposits, not deposits, disposits. It is in the disposition of, right? So Jupiter disposits retrograde in Aries, disposits to Mars. Where's Mars? Mars is preparing to retrograde in Gemini. That's Mercury's home sign. So Mars disposits to Mercury. And where is Mercury? Mercury is stationing retrograde in Libra, which is Venus's home sign, one of her two home signs. And where is Venus? Because Mercury disposits to Venus. Venus is in Virgo, where she's not particularly happy, right? So Venus is kind of the end of the chain that you get over here, and Venus is in Virgo, where she's not particularly happy. Now, Virgo happens to be Mercury's home sign, one of Mercury's home signs, the other one, Gemini and Virgo. And so they're in what you call mutual reception. Venus is in Mercury's sign, Mercury is in Venus's sign. That's usually considered to be a good thing, except for the fact that Venus is so unhappy in Virgo and Mercury is retrograde in Libra. We'll probably get a little bit of a relief from situations when Venus comes into Libra at the end of September, September 29th. That's a pretty long wait from where we're standing right now. The only, not only Venus is in Virgo, and she's sort of like the almost final dispositor of this whole situation. And she's going to oppose Neptune on the 24th. That ought to be interesting because Neptune is in his home sign of Pisces, which is Venus's favorite sign. So there's this kind of Venus is in her least favorite sign. She's going to be connecting in opposition to Neptune in his. Be very interesting to see how that plays out for A, relationships, but relationships are really going to be a subject for next week with all that Juno action. A, relationships, and B, finances. We got some stuff going on here with finances as well. You'll note that it was last week at the Uranus station, followed by Venus squaring Uranus, very right after the station, that markets, which had been sort of working their way up since mid-June, started to reverse themselves. And so it would be very interesting to see what happens. And when I say very interesting, I do, in fact, acknowledge that it's somewhat nerve-wracking in its own particular way. So we have this whole chain of dispositorships going on that lands itself on Venus in Virgo, and Mercury retrograde in Libra. And the combined message of this is that it's just very difficult to do things without essentially planning to have to redo them. You want to have plan B, you want to have plan C, and you want to have plan D for anything that you're going to be doing in September. And then certainly this week, and then September in general. September gets very slippery once we get to about midweek. Again, that's midweek next week, the end of next week. Things get very slippery. And so what we're doing, we're sort of losing our grip slowly. Some people are losing it quickly, but we're losing our grip on matters. Situations are getting a little beyond us rather quickly. So, you know, what you can grasp now, hold on to and work with, because it's going to be harder and harder to hold on. October has got a lot of energy, but it's all happening in the shadow of Mars retrograde, Mercury coming out of his retrograde, and so on. It's not going to be an easier time to do things. It's going to be a time when we're going to have to be thinking quickly on our feet. That's why you want to have your backup plans ready now. That's why flexibility and adaptability are the words to hold on to. See, if you shut off the video right at the beginning when I said this is the take-home message, then you don't get that flexibility and adaptability are what's really going to carry you through this time. That's what you really, really need. So you want to have backup plans. You want to have alternatives. I'm going to have to go back and do this thing again. I'm trying to do this, but I'm not sure that it's going to continue to work. It is getting to be a very dicey time to begin a new job. That's a Mars retrograde thing, especially with this Libra energy around. It's not a great time for any kind of legal action, court cases, or anything like that, especially that. And you know, things will bog down. That's your risk when it comes to this stuff. It's somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. The problem is it's going to bog down. It's certainly not a good time to be initiating action, but whatever happens is going to be kind of bogged down at this point in time. So you're doing what you can early in the week, then you're kind of starting to let things go. We're going to let serendipity guide us. But on the other hand, we're not going to say that we're not doing anything. We're going to be, you know, as alert and active as we can be. We're going to try to respond rather than react. See what you can do. And probably have a nice time. Just enjoy that full moon in Pisces. You know, mix a cocktail or whatever, you know, have some fun, because it's getting hard to do anything. And well, we'll talk about more stuff next week.